Welcome back, focused learners. I'm so thrilled to have you here for another deep dive on the explainer. Okay, let's jump right in. Today, we're looking at something that affects literally every single one of us almost every single day, whether we actually realize it or not. We're unpacking this really comprehensive framework on serving with respect, basic principles, and strategies for customer service. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Customer service? Look, I don't work in a call center or some big retail store. But trust me, this explainer is going to completely change how you view those two words. We're going to look at customer service not as this corporate buzzword, but as an absolutely essential, everyday community skill. I mean, really think about it. How does it feel when a seller just totally ignores you? Picture a time when you walked up to a counter to ask for help, or maybe you sent a message to an online seller, and you were just met with absolute silence. Or worse, right? That dismissive look. It is incredibly frustrating. You feel unvalued, annoyed, and probably pretty eager to take your business or just your presence somewhere else. Well, that emotional memory you're accessing right now, that universally terrible feeling of bad service, is exactly why the skills we're about to break down matter so deeply. It's a completely shared human experience. All right, let's get right into Section 1. What is customer service? Beyond the corporate world. So the source material brilliantly illustrates our foundational idea here. It defines customer service as assisting a customer, client, learner, parent, visitor, buyer, or really any person who needs information, service, or support. Notice how incredibly broad that is? It totally strips away the purely commercial aspect. It's saying that customer service is simply the act of helping people respectfully and responsibly. So that means if you're helping a parent at a community meeting, or guiding a lost visitor, or just answering a quick inquiry at a local learn center, guess what? You're actively engaged in customer service. It's really all about how we treat each other when someone actually needs our help. Moving on to Section 2, 6 Principles of Service, the building blocks of respect. Okay, so there are these 6 principles, and they're basically the core attitudes that make people feel truly welcomed and valued. First up is respect, which means treating every single person politely, totally regardless of the situation. Then there's courtesy, which is honestly as simple as using kind words and proper greetings. Next is patience, and wow, we all know how much deep breathing this takes when someone comes at you with a million frantic questions, right? But staying calm is just absolutely key. Fourth is empathy, actively trying to put yourself in their shoes and understand the feelings of the person in front of you. Fifth, honesty, always giving truthful, correct info. And finally, responsibility. Just stepping up and doing what you can to help and guide the person properly. Literally, these 6 principles are the bedrock of any positive interaction. Which brings us to Section 3, strategies for everyday inquiries, actionable steps for good communication. So how do we actually translate those lofty principles into the real world? Well, it often comes down to incredibly simple choices. Think about a super common but honestly terrible response. I don't know. It's a dead end, right? It just slams the door on the person asking for help. But now compare that to, let me find out for you. See the difference? That is exactly what proper courtesy and responsibility look like in practice. It takes the exact same amount of time to say, but it entirely shifts the dynamic. It shows the person that even if you don't have the answer right this second, you're genuinely committed to being helpful. Let's see how this plays out when we match specific everyday needs to specific strategies. For example, if a customer simply asks for the price of a product, your strategy is pretty straightforward. You just greet them politely and give them simple, clear information. Easy enough. But what if a visitor asks for directions to the barangay hall? Well, that requires a slightly different approach. You've got to listen actively to figure out exactly where they're starting from, and then give very clear step-by-step instructions. By actively listening and, asking those clarifying questions, you actually ensure that the information you're giving genuinely solves their specific problem. All right, Section 4, the Listen, Ask, Solve method, a framework for handling complaints. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that things are not always going to go smoothly. I mean, we have to be realistic. Mistakes happen, delays happen. What exactly happens when a buyer receives a damaged product or a customer waits way too long for your service? Well, suddenly the tension rises, stress levels spike. People get incredibly frustrated and impatient, and rightfully so. But relying on a structured method takes all the panic out of these high-stress situations. You don't need to frantically guess how to respond in the heat of the moment. You just need to follow the framework. And here is that framework, the Listen, Ask, Solve method. I'd honestly call this the crown jewel of our explainer today. Step 1, listen calmly. Just let them get their frustration out without interrupting them at all. Step 2, ask questions to clarify the concern so you fully understand what went wrong. Step 3, Acknowledge the concern and apologize properly if needed. Seriously, just saying, "I'm so sorry for the delay," goes a really long way. Step 4, offer a fair solution or maybe the next step to fix the problem. And finally, step 5, thank the customer respectfully for bringing it to your attention. Listen, ask, apologize, solve, and thank. If you can just memorize those 5 little steps, you can turn almost any disappointed person into a satisfied one completely, calmly, and professionally. Let's bring it all together in Section 5, putting it into practice, using these skills everywhere. I really want to emphasize how incredibly adaptable these communication and problem-solving skills are across a huge range of environments. The source material makes a very specific point to connect this to real-life situations that you might see every single day. These strategies are not just for fancy hotels or massive faceless corporations. No way. They're exactly what you need when you're running a local Sari Starry store or selling food on the street. They are totally vital for digital citizenship too, like responding respectfully on online selling platforms and navigating those wild community group chats. And they're absolutely essential for public service, whether you're handling transactions at a barangay hall or answering inquiries from parents at an ALS learning center. Good customer service builds immense trust, literally no matter where you're applying it. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to challenge you. How are you going to apply these skills today? Whether you're selling a product, assisting a neighbor, or just typing out a message in a group chat. Remember that a little patience and a simple "let me find out for you" can transform an entire interaction. If customer service is really just community care in disguise, the real question is, how will you choose to treat the next person who asks you for help? Thanks for joining me today, Focus Learners, and I will see you in the next explainer.